Hello and welcome to Gone Phishing, a podcast from the North East Business Resilience Centre, aka the NEBRC, focusing on all things cyber related. Our aim is to help raise awareness and understanding amongst business audiences, supporting them to be better prepared and protected from the growing issue of cybercrime and fraud. I'm Rebecca Chapman, Director of the NEBRC and a Superintendent at South Yorkshire Police with nearly 30 years policing experience across uniform and CRD. And today I am absolutely delighted to be speaking to Phil Jackman. He is the lead for the North East Cyber Cluster, a director of UKC3, which we'll come on to, and one of the NEBRC's founding board members and one of the very first people that we went up to the North East and said, who's really well connected? And somebody said Phil Jackman, and so that's where it started. And it all started with Phil Jackman.
Oh, flattery will get you everywhere.
So Phil, great to have you here. I'll just start by asking you really what your current role is at Cyber North and UKC3, what it is and what it entails.
Yeah, so I've got kind of many hats about it, but really since COVID I've focused primarily on the Cyber North and the UKC3. I'd also like to touch on the North East Business Ethics, which would be just very briefly. But Cyber North is the cluster, cybersecurity cluster for the North East region. It covers right from Berwick down to Tees Valley. We've got about 80 businesses that are delivering and cybersecurity services. And we've got an NEBRC in there somewhere, so that's great. So I kind of work to try and corral and encourage the businesses to work together because I'm convinced there's a bigger pot out there for us to go for. So we try to do four things. We try to raise awareness. So we have lots of events coming in Cyberfest. We had 17 events this September. So I didn't get much sleep during September at all. And we're planning something even bigger for like next year. We try to promote existing businesses by getting to work together in a collaborative but competitive framework. We're trying to support new businesses through an cybersecurity innovation centre that we're working with the two universities in Newcastle on, Accenture and Plexel. And then we... skills. Well, we're going to try and address the skills shortage, and I'll come back to that later. But I'm thinking of a fifth leg to my stool, and that's international trade. How can we either go on trade missions abroad or bring trade missions into the region and promote our ways there? So that's kind of what I do on Cyber North, and I have a small team around me now, which has grown from nothing in the last 6 months to, I think we've got 4 of us now, so that's really good. So as for UKC3, there's 6 directors. I'm the only one who has no cybersecurity experience, so I got to look after the money, which was a coup d'etat. It was a really smart move, and we've been very successful, I think, in allocating money out to the clusters and helping them to grow. So we've now we went from 6 clusters to 13 recognised clusters across the country, and there's still some gaps which we're working on to fill. And the aim is to have the whole country covered. I said I'd mention NIBE. I'm interested in anything related to the North East, and I'd like to position the region as a nice place to do business, as a decent place to do business. So I've been working with the North East Initiative on Business Ethics, trying to get us away from a low-wage economy to a trusted economy. And I kind of think that fits with cybersecurity as well. So that was a long answer to a very short question.
Yeah. So I suppose some of our listeners might not know what the clusters are and what they were designed for and how UKC3 came about. So can you just give us a bit of background on that?
Yeah, so I think when I think of clusters, I think of a bit like a city, how cities come together. As people come together with common interest to achieve things, they agglomerate that demand. They come together, and some have formed naturally, particularly around Cirencester, around the Cheltenham and the Donut down there, GCHQ, whereas others take a bit more effort. So our 80 companies are quite dispersed, and so what I'm trying to do is to get them to come together. But so of the 13 clusters, each of them is very different. Each of them has a different focus. So, ours may be growth, somebody else may be skills, somebody else may be military. There's all sorts of different ways of skinning this cat.
Excellent. So you obviously work with quite a broad cross-section of business. What do you think cybersecurity means to business today?
Yeah, well, that's a really interesting question because I think it means, well, we talk about it as if it's one thing, and it's not. People think of it in many different ways. So we work mainly with 2 types of businesses. Those that provide cybersecurity services, like I said, there's about 80 of those. But that might be technical, it might be training, it might be consultancy, and they can be all sizes. So we've got companies over 300 employees, we've got companies with 2 employees, and they're all in the same sort of field. So and security means different things to them. Cybersecurity means something to them. It means their livelihood. Some it means it's a department within there. You know what I mean? And then we have a whole range of companies that are big enough to have a cybersecurity presence in the build. So people like Northumbrian Water Group or Nissan, North P&I, NHS BSA, HMRC. These kind of companies in public sector businesses that have a cybersecurity sector. And so cybersecurity isn't one thing. It depends upon the type of business. But I think it's security of information, reputation, resilience, how to keep the operations going, a nuisance for many. But then I think it's not just technical, and I think sometimes we get too hung up on the technological problems, because really it's a people problem, cybersecurity. And so, there's child protection issues, there's clearly crime issues, which you'll be involved in significantly. And I'm particularly interested in the role of art that has to play in cybersecurity. Yeah, so then, as part of Cyberfest for the last 3 years, we've been running an arts competition. So this year we had somebody doing a trapeze act, we had somebody juggling, we've had video, we've had somebody doing head wraps, African head wraps, because they're a form of identity. You can tell the tribe of the person by their head wrap, apparently. All sorts of things, ways of looking at cybersecurity from different perspectives. And so that's been a really interesting process. But I suppose really, for me, it's opportunity. Yeah, cybersecurity is a huge opportunity to grow a business in the region. So, we've got things like offshore, advanced manufacturing, chemical processing, marine, public sector. And these are all areas that will be crying out for excellent cybersecurity services. And that's where I think our focus needs to be.
And I suppose really then the talent pipeline kind of fits into that, doesn't it? So how do you feel about the student services and the things that we offer at the NEBRC contributing to that kind of picture in the North East?
Yeah, so it's a multifaceted problem, and the skills, because actually I don't think we have a skills shortage per se. We've got enough skilled people. What they lack is that experience of being able to. So we have an experience gap rather than a skills gap. I mean, there's 5,500 students currently studying computer science in the 5 universities in the North East today. So there's plenty of skilled people coming out. It's just a question of, are they right for the kind of business that we've got? So I think the way that you've approached this, the student services, it allows students to gain that business experience in a safe environment with the trusted brand. Yeah, because trust is a big issue within the. Obviously, cybersecurity is about trust, and letting somebody loose who has very little experience in their business is a big ask to make. Yeah.
Yeah. Luckily, they're heavily supervised.
Exactly. Yes. Absolutely.
So, what do you think about? Are there any current trends and patterns regarding cybersecurity for businesses in our region, in particular?
Yes, I think so. I mean, we're talking about skills, and that's something that people talk to me about all the time. But ironically, students say to me, "I can't get a job," and the businesses say, "I can't find anybody to." So there's some mismatch in the market, and I'll talk a bit later about that, I think, in what we're doing to address that. But I think there's a lot of complexity inherent in cybersecurity. People are concerned about how complex it is. There's that integration with the business. It's how do you apply cybersecurity to the business that I'm running, rather than just as some sort of notional concept. How can we get it to be business as usual? A bit like health and safety is now, when it used to be back in the 70s, it was a joke, and now it's very much a fundamental part of what we do. And then there's always those new threats coming on, and fear that you're kind of missing out, and that leads to people burying their head in the sand and just saying, it's not for me. Yeah, it's never going to happen. So I said I'd come back to the skills work. So we're working on a couple of things. One is we're trying to develop a shared apprentice scheme. So the idea is that we'd get a number of SMEs who would then take on that apprentice, and they would have them for a shorter period rather than the 2-year commitment. That reduces their overhead for it, but it also increases the skills of that apprentice, because they will get experience of many more companies, and that appeals to hopefully those smaller businesses which make up the bulk of the North East. So we've got some money from Northumbrian Water Group, which is an idea we pitched at the Northumbrian Water Group Innovation Festival that you were at last year, and so we're getting on with that. So that's one thing we're doing, and we're just about to pitch for an idea to develop a campaign to encourage people to come in, using people who are real people who are doing the jobs today, about how they got there and their stories they've got to tell. Yeah, because stories resonate with people, and I think if we can do that, then we'll we'll get that going. So there's a couple of initiatives that we're doing with that. We're also, I think, one of the current patterns and trends is collaboration. Very keen to see businesses collaborating in a competitive framework, but I think if you're going to pitch for global or national business, you're going to have to be of a fair sized company, and we just don't have them, so we need to work together. And I'm interested that we've just launched a new program to try and look at the opportunity for the 3 northern clusters, so that's North West, Yorkshire and Cyber North, to work together to see what assets we have and how we could make the best use of those and compete using those against the South East or Israel or wherever it is that we've got to compete with on a global stage. Yeah.
And because people talk about the North-South divide, do you still see it?
Yes, I do. But I think there's but I don't think it's that simple. And what we mustn't be is just have that victim mentality of, oh, woe is me, we'll never get our way. But we're not the south of England. We're not Silicon Valley. We have our own unique features, and I think there's a lot of talk within the region about bringing in another Itesana, bringing in another Siemens, and bringing in those big jobs. But why? Why don't we just concentrate on what we're good at, which is creating lots of small businesses, which in the end of the day are actually much more stable if you can keep them going. So that's fine. So I think there's a lot to do, and particularly in areas, I think, as a layperson, thinking about the relationship between IT and OT, I think that's a huge opportunity for us around chemical processing in Tees Valley, for example. There's the supply chain management, all our marine stuff. I think there's really exciting opportunities in there. And the latest one that's scaring me to death is this emergence of no-code, low-code, and I have no idea what the security is going to be like in those, so we'll see how that goes. So I think there's great opportunity here in the trends that are emerging. It's just how do we take hold of that?
So how do you think we can influence people to understand cybersecurity?
Well, I think first of all we continue doing what we're doing. Yes, so I think the cluster, I think the NEBRC, they are great opportunities to spread the word. But because it's not one thing, it needs all sorts of people, I think, to get involved. Need different ways of telling a story. That comes back to that art again. I think it's people are going to engage with cybersecurity in different ways, and we need to present them with different ways. I think government has a clear role. I thought the National Cyber Strategy was an excellent document, very easy to read, very clear about what we're trying to do. I think we need more engagement from local government and that, particularly around mayoral authorities and how that's all shaping out, and the role of the LEPs, who knows what's going there. The learning sector has a huge role to play, not just universities, but the colleges, and I think even primary schools, there's a role to play. And the parents, obviously, they need to influence there to realise that the children can have fantastic opportunities within cybersecurity. There's the businesses themselves, there's the police, continue to do that good work. And then I think a bit that perhaps hasn't got it right yet is the media, television, radio, and it would be good to see stories about cybersecurity people in the soaps, in the news, that kind of thing, as something that happens normally and part of life. Yeah.
And do you still think it's really important to have that local footprint? So you obviously run a North East cluster, and I run a North East Business Resilience Centre. Do you think it's really important to have a local focus rather than everything sort of be national or London-based?
Well, I think the answer to that is yes. Yeah, because for a number of reasons, I think it's very difficult to have a national organisation that isn't focused on wherever it happens to be. Yeah, so if it's based in London, it tends to be have a local southeast focus, whether it's intentional or not. And I think by having places positioned in the regions, it makes a difference. But I go back to that point. I think the northeast is very different from the southeast. It has a lot of sheep country. Yeah, it has Northern is the lowest density county in the whole of England. Yeah, so there's a lot of space in there, and it has 2 very dynamic conurbations, and so there's a lot of good stuff going for it, and so I think it makes sense to have a local presence.
So if you could kind of offer one piece of business advice to businesses about cybersecurity, what would it be?
It would be concentrate on that opportunity. Yeah, there's great things going on. For example, we have a centre of excellence in space in Durham. So not people launching in rockets and nothing, but all the data that's being collected from satellites and everything. So a huge opportunity for for growth and new product ideas and service ideas to come off that. And that's just one of many. We've got 5 excellent universities. 2 are in the North East. Because we're down in Sheffield today, and Sheffield's got an excellent university as well. But the 2 in University of Newcastle are academic centres of excellence, recognised by the NCSC. So they're doing some fantastic research. We just need to learn how to monetise that, I think, and commercialise that.
So what do you think the future looks like for cybersecurity? What do you think the big things that are out there are going to get us?
Well, I think it's going to be intense. But I'm optimistic about where we're going with it, because I think there's huge opportunities I keep coming back to. But I think we need to move away from that sort of standard delivery options, that kind of Me Too kind of businesses, and broaden our horizon. I think businesses need to put time into thinking about innovation, and even if it's 1 or 2% of their time, thinking about, okay, how can I create those new products of the future? Explore new ideas, think about commercializing them, dream a little, get involved with other people and other skill sets, and use that as a way to challenge your future growth.
So coming back to the NEBRC and why you became involved in the first place. So we pitch up. We met at Atom Bank, I think, in Durham some time ago, right at the beginning of this journey, and you were in a Cyberfest t-shirt.
That's true.
Promoting your latest Cyberfest. And you've continued to wear those t-shirts every year since in different
I haven't got one
colours.
on today because we're out of season.
So I'll just ask you really, why did you become involved in the NEBRC, and why do you stay involved, and what do you see our role in the future to be?
Well, first of all, I think the easy answer to that question is I'm in favour of anything that supports what we're doing in the North East. Yeah, so here's an opportunity. And when I met Mandy and yourself, I thought, wow, this is a great opportunity and great people, and I think that's what makes the difference in it. So I just wanted a piece of that. I think, though, the police is an extremely strong brand. It has a huge role to play, and I think driving security into people's minds, and so that's great. And this isn't meant to be a criticism, but small businesses I don't think are well served by the market yet. They're too small to really bother. They haven't got the money to really invest in it. They're frightened by it and want it to all go away. It's all perceived as too expensive and not a risk it happens to somebody else. And so I think there's a great opportunity here, because in the end the vast majority of businesses in the North East are small businesses, some micro. Most of them are lifestyle businesses, and that's not a weakness. I think that's a strength that we need to play out within the region. So the NEBRC, I think, can bring these businesses into the market. It can create market failure is perhaps too strong a word, but it can create a market for these companies. So I think that's a huge opportunity and very exciting. Clearly, there's going to be a point where one meets the other, and we just need to manage that carefully. But in the greater good, I think it's a fantastic opportunity. I've said opportunity an awful lot, but there you go. That could be the buzzword for today. So as for the future, well, we've just tickled the surface, haven't we? There's still a huge amount to go, and a huge amount of businesses to get into the fold. So I think the whole sector needs to work together. So all of us need to be on the same pitch, and I think that's why it's just great having you in the presence and the universities. It's just great having us all working together.
And nice to get out after COVID and actually see people in the flesh again.
Yeah, we're really working hard to get people to come back to events now, and we've tried all possible permutations, but there's no substitute for face-to-face in order to build relationships, I think. Yeah.
Agreed. So here's to many more joint events in the future.
Absolutely.
Absolutely delighted that you could join us today, and thank you for travelling down to sunny Sheffield, although it's not so sunny at the moment. And hopefully we'll see you again really soon. Thank you ever so much, Phil.
Well, I've got it all in the diary, so I know when we're going to see it again. And the pleasure has been all mine. Thank you very much.
Thank you.